Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Get ready to be inspired, hear success stories, and learn tips and principles for bringing out the best in everyone.
This is Debra, and this is Human Potential at Work. My guest today is somebody that I've been following for a long time. I love the work that they're doing. And the executive director, Ichiro Kabasawa, and I'm sure I said that incorrectly, is joining us from, oh, good. So you're joining us today from Japan, from Tokyo. And,
yes.
And we're very excited about the work that you're doing in the Nippon Foundation. So do you mind telling us a little bit about who you are? And you have a really interesting background.
Well, sure. And first of all, thank you very much for having me in the show. It's such an honor. And I will explain about our foundation, the Nippon Foundation, briefly. Our mission is basically social innovation. Through this innovation, we aim to achieve a society where all people support one another. And, if you think about, our society, everyone has a role to play. As a citizens and corporation has non-profit organization like us, governments and international bodies. And, by forging networks among these actors, the Nippon Foundation serves as, in a sense, a hub for the world's wisdom, experience, and human resources, giving individuals the capacity to change society. And the Nippon Foundation is the largest private foundation in Japan and probably in Asia. For example, our annual budget 2020 is about approximately $600 million US dollars.
Wow.
So it's quite large.
Yes, wow.
So we do many things, many various things in different fields. And of course, disability field is one of our main pillars.
I know I've been tracking, which I've been doing for a really long time, and I've been so impressed. And there's so many leaders in the field that keep saying, oh, Debra, you have got to have them on the show. Dr. Caroline Casey of the Valuable 500, who's heading to WEF next week. She just speaks so highly of your leadership and your team and everything you're doing. And Dr. Christopher Lee talked about, what you are doing. There's so many. And so I was really honored to meet, some of your colleagues and have you agree to be on the program. And Japan to me is so interesting in a lot of ways because of all of the countries in the world, Japan's population is aging faster than any other country in the world. And so we've seen a lot of innovation coming out of Japan as you protect your citizens. And of course, naturally, as we age, more of us acquire disabilities. And so this is something that I really appreciate the innovation that I see coming from your foundation, and also how you're not just focused in Japan, you're looking at this from a global perspective because we are all global citizens. So why are you looking at it from that perspective? Why is it so important for the work that you do to impact people globally instead of just focusing on your amazing country that has a lot of great needs with your population aging so quickly?
Okay. The Nippon Foundation, we're not new to this particular field, disability field. Since the establishment of the Nippon Foundation in 1962, more than half century ago, the Nippon Foundation has been engaging in activities of supporting persons with disabilities, not only in Japan, as you said, over 40 countries in our history, and especially in Asia. In domestically, one of the projects we have been doing for a long time is we have deployed more than 40,000 welfare vehicles, specially equipped for wheelchair users for free And these welfare vehicles were uncommon when the project was first started in 1994. But nowadays, they are running their services throughout in Japan. And,
which is amazing.
Yeah, so that's one example that we have been doing for a long time. And as you know, we will have Tokyo 2020 Olympics and Paralympics Games. And we are very excited about it. And the Nippon Foundation has been supporting Paralympic Games for 5 years. This is our fifth year to support Paralympic Games, because it is not easy for para athletes
Right.
to have, for example, their offices in Japan, and to find a place to practice what they do, what they compete. So the Nippon Foundation has committed $100 million for 5 years to support Japanese para athletes. For example, 5 years ago, in 2015, so 5 years ago, 15, we provided a place for those para athletes to have office to connect with international Paralympic organizations, because they have to decide where they have games or Paralympics, and of course they must communicate with internationally. So they need translators, they need interpretations, and everything we have provided for them for free. So we will have, hopefully we have a successful Paralympic Games in next summer, this coming summer, but we have been supporting them from the beginning.
Yeah, we're very excited to support the International Paralympic Committee too. We went over to Germany, Bonn, Germany, and spoke about Tech for All and Tech for Good. And I know that many of us, when we look at Japan, we think of technology and innovations coming out of Japan. We think about artificial intelligence and robots, and there's always so many interesting projects that I'm hearing about. And Nippon Foundation is always attached the most interesting creative projects. So I just am really honored that you agreed to come on the program, because you're really changing the world for people with disabilities. And like you said, you're not just about people with disabilities, but you really care about our community. And we're so grateful for the efforts that you're making.
Right. And speaking of international activities, we have been doing our projects mainly in Asia, Southeast Asia, most of the time. And I would like to show you one example that we have been doing for a long time, which is in Southeast Asia. They had a long and different kind of civil wars in the 70s and 80s, and in early 1990s, the Nippon Foundation decided to provide prosthetics and orthotics for those who have injured during the wartime in Southeast Asia. And at that time, in the beginning, we just provided sets of prosthetics and orthotics. In total, we have provided 500,000 sets for them. But we thought that's not sustainable for them, because once we stop supporting them, and the sport will be over. So we decided to establish schools for to educate, to create prosthetists and orthotists, so that they can sustainably continuing to make prosthetics and orthotics by themselves. Wow. So in 6 countries, we have established schools to educate prosthetists and orthotists. And it takes long time. One country, it takes about 10 years and about 10 US million dollars, because we just not built a building of, those schools, but we also, establish the contents, the inside of the buildings of the schools. So in the early stages, of course, we invite professors and teachers from Western countries and from Japan. But after 10 years, we could actually educate their own professors and teachers, so that they can teach in their languages to their local people, so that they can provide more prosthetics and orthotics for their own people. And
Which
we
is
established,
amazing.
we established these schools for 30 years in 6 different countries in Southeast Asia.
Well, and I think you bring up such a good point, because sometimes we see philanthropists and foundations coming in, they'll help with a problem, and then they step away and they step away, and the
Exactly.
programs just, you leave
Yeah.
people sometimes more discouraged than they were, because now they don't have, it's not sustainable. And I know that one thing that I love about your foundation, you're one of my favorite foundations. One thing I love about it is you're really serious about supporting the world with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because we have 17 of those goals we've agreed to as a world. And you are a real, you're a real good leader showing us what can be done. But you're right. If we don't provide a sustainable way to keep these programs going, then the money leaves and it all falls apart. And I think that's one reason why I've been tracking, what the Nippon Foundation's doing. And I like how you're also really looking at all the latest technologies, and how can technologies and artificial intelligence and everything that's happening in the world, including, the robots. We're seeing such interesting innovations continue to come out of Japan, and a lot of support with Nippon Foundation really giving people with disabilities a chance to feel like they're part of the community, and they do matter, and they do add value to society. I've looked at your website, and I'm always so impressed with the efforts you're doing. And it seems like you're in a lot of different things. Like, you mentioned the education one, and and I know that there's a lot of really cool programs happening with robots and artificial intelligence and technologies. I just was wondering if you could give us some examples of how y'all gotten involved in some of those conversations.
Okay. One of the projects that we have committed is we use a small robot operating from distance. For example, people who are unable to go out from their houses, they can use this technology. They can be connected through internet to use small robot, so that they can work remotely. And we had an experimental event at the Nippon Foundation building last year. We asked some persons with disabilities who are not able to come to workplaces, so they work at home. This is we set up a cafe, and all the waiters and waitresses are robots.
Okay.
And they were being operated by those who are at home. And
wow,
mainly most of the operators, they cannot even sit up. They cannot stand up, sit up. They usually lay down on their beds and using their hands, fingers, and sometimes eyeballs to operate those robots. But they can actually could serve for the customers coffees and teas, as being waiters and waitresses. So that's one of the examples for thank God for the progress of technology. So I'm sure there will be much more things they will be able to do it with by utilizing those new technologies.
I know. And the robots, I watched that, and I looked at a lot that y'all were doing with the robots. And I have always employed people with severe disabilities in my company. And many of them, like you said, some of them, they can't come to a traditional work environment. And so they work they work remotely. And there's so many things that the robots and the artificial intelligence can do to help us, be better humans. But I also loved that project because it wasn't just artificial intelligence, it was robots. You had human beings with disabilities running the
Right.
robot. And that is
Right.
really, really clever. And what we're seeing is artificial intelligence can be created. I know that there was a seal that was created with artificial intelligence by, I think, a university in the United States, if I'm correct. And they had put it in nursing homes, and they were trying to get the residents of the nursing homes to feel less lonely and isolated by playing with the seal, with this artificial intelligence seal. But what surprised the researchers were that what it wound up being was the seal didn't necessarily make the person feel more isolated, but as they're playing with it, their relatives are coming in and other people are coming in and saying, what is that? And all of a sudden there's socialization happening with humans because of the robot, because of the artificial intelligence. And I know we've learned quite a bit in the community of people with disabilities with some of the work that y'all have supported and promoted. And the innovation is very exciting because I believe that we need to really value all human beings as we move into the artificial intelligence age. How can we decide how to program artificial intelligence if we're leaving large segments of our populations out? So that's another one that I've been very interested in, the innovation and the leadership that I'm seeing from the Nippon Foundation. And there's so many things you are doing. It we'd have to probably stay on air for hours and hours to talk about all the projects, but
Yes.
really important projects. And we have people all over the world watching what the Nippon Foundation's doing. And it's very exciting to me because of the progress and what we're learning from the efforts that you're making. But, do you want to talk about it? You're doing so many things. So tell us more about what you I as a mother of a grown daughter with disabilities, and my husband has aged into disabilities because of traumatic brain injury. These
Right.
things are just so important. They're still human. There's still value. They still add a lot of value. And when we have leadership and innovation coming from, your leadership in Nippon Foundation, this is changing people's lives. So it's, you have done so many things. I just am very impressed and honored once again
Well,
that
thank you
you
very
agreed
much
to
for
be
saying
on the
that.
show. I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan of your work.
Thank you.
And I know you were very supportive of what Dr. Caroline Casey was doing with the Valuable 500 and encouraging in Japan to get engaged and be involved. And you were one of the first Asian countries to do that as well, which I also applaud that.
Yes, yes. Well, as I mentioned, Nippon Foundation has a long history to support persons with disabilities. But mainly, by far, we have supported them. For example, we have many kinds of scholarships for persons with disabilities so that they can have a higher education in the universities and, having master's degrees and even PhDs. But we have come to a conclusion that that's not sufficient in many countries, because probably in Western countries and maybe in Japan, those people, those persons with disabilities who have a very good education, they have a chance to work. But most of the countries in Southeast Asian countries, although they have a very good education, it's very difficult for them to find jobs. So the Nippon Foundation, especially after Tokyo 2020, we are trying to move into, we try to have not only for human resources development, but also we try to make people with disabilities to participate in the societies more. And we decided it's probably the easiest way for them to participate in the societies to have jobs.
Right, agree.
So that they can live by
Right.
themselves. So that's why we have committed with the valuable 500 to encourage companies to hire more persons with disabilities in their workplaces. That's the reason we are trying to make major changes for our projects to support persons with disabilities, from, for example, education to jobs.
Right, right. And, you know, and I agree with you. There's nothing more important than employment to people with
Mm-hmm.
disabilities, because what we've seen in many of the Western countries, and especially in the United States, is there are more people with disabilities than ever before graduating from colleges, but we
Mm-hmm.
still see the unemployment rates so low. We also
Right.
have seen that people with disabilities that are employed are often underemployed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one reason why, you know, I think we all are doing the work we do. What you're doing, what we're doing, what Caroline's doing, because we have to change the perception of society about people with disabilities only
Yes.
being about charity. This is not about
Mm-hmm.
charity. And that's one thing I like about the Nippon Foundation. You are creating sustainable programs to actually change people's lives. You're just not throwing money at a situation and going, okay, good luck, and walking away. I also like that, obviously, I'm a big fan of your work, but I also really like that you are partnering with universities, and you're partnering with other foundations, and you're really engaged in big ways in these big global conversations so that
Mm-hmm.
everyone can contribute. People with disabilities, they want to contribute to the workforce. They want to
Yes.
be taxpayers. They want to work, and they want to show you what they're capable of doing. And that's another reason why I'm such a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you very much. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know if you want to comment a little bit more on that, but I just think it's
Okay, sure.
powerful, game-changing work. So I just really, really applaud. I applaud the efforts that you're making, and I applaud your leadership too. So let me give you the
Yeah.
mic.
Um, uh, Basically, the Nippon Foundation is a grant-making foundation. Although we have our own project that we implement by ourselves, but our human resources are limited compared to the money, the financial resources we have. So it's a very natural thing for us to ask support from others who has their own expertise and they have their own networks, and that's more efficient. The result is more important rather than the process.
I agree. I agree. Well said. Well said. Now, tell me about the True Colors conference and the
Okay.
efforts you're making with that, because that is just, it's just stunning. It's stunning.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I'm feeling a little, down, I'll actually go and look at the picture. It's just really stunning. And just such a wonderful way of putting everything together and really enjoying who we are as humans. It's just a really beautiful effort.
Well, sure, sure. We are actually very excited to have this True Colors Festival, and it's called festival, so it has to be festival. But the concept, this True Colors Festival is organized by the Nippon Foundation, aiming for a society where everyone feels included and valued. And regardless of physical condition, but also gender, sexuality, nationality, language, or countries or areas, um, the festival will showcase string of artistic performances, including dance, musical, live music, singing songs, theater, and the fashion show, and culminate at True Colors concert in the end in the summer of 2020, right before the opening ceremony of Olympic Games in July 2020. So this is, I would say, unprecedented, a series of events focusing on diversities, not only persons with disabilities, but genders and races and other diversities we are trying to put in. Since domestically in Japan, this is a special year for Japan because we are having our Olympic Games in summer. So as you said, I would like to change the perspective of people looking at persons with disabilities, gender, people with gender issues, people with some differences, and this is very good timing for Japan to introduce this kind of event. And we have this festival throughout a year since last September for almost 1 year. We have in total about 10 events, music event, live music, jazz, and dance, so that regular people, they have opportunities to have, in a sense, contact points to meet different people from them, persons with disabilities, and maybe different genders. So we are trying to provide this kind of performing arts events for regular people to change their perspectives towards persons with disabilities and others.
And the talent that I see on the videos I've watched, and I can't imagine how amazing it must be being there in person, because the energy coming from the videos and the photographs, it's stunning. It's stunning. And I love that you're including all of the diversity groups, because we're diverse. Human beings are diverse. Some of us have gray and purple hair. I mean, we're diverse people, and there's beauty in diversity, and there's beauty in inclusion. And I just think it's really powerful. And I have no doubt that the Tokyo Olympics are going to be amazing, because we always see innovation and amazing technological wonders coming from Japan. So we just know it's going to be really a showcase of everything that makes Japan such a wonderful place. But I just love that this is not just about Japan, but this is about the world, and it's about Asia, and it's about bringing us all together to really make the world a better place for everybody. And I just really, really applaud and appreciate the work you're doing. It's really amazing. I've been watching for years, and I've been really wanting to have you come on the program, because I didn't know if other people were noticing what I was noticing, and just the innovation and the creativity that's coming from the Nippon Foundation. So I really, really appreciate and applaud your work. Do you mind telling the audience how they can find more about the work you're doing, what your website is? And I know you're on social media. And of course, we will include all of that with the interview so that everybody can learn more about it. And we need to support what you're doing too. We need to all get behind what you're doing and support the efforts you're making, because even though you're a big foundation with a lot of money, it takes all of us doing this. We can't just sit back and go, oh, we'll let you do all the work. No, we have to support what you're doing as well.
Well, thank you very much. And that's the reason why we have this event, True Codes Festival. And, we don't want this event only within Japan. We want, make more people outside of Japan to understand our message, to recognize the differences each other. And the reason why we decided to have this event is Paralympic Games are great. But if you think about Olympic Games and Paralympic Games, they are not very inclusive.
Right.
Because they have a separate event. They are divided by genders, countries, and whether you have, capable of, something. And because of, you have, because of the, they have to compete each other. So it's natural, but you have to be young, very athletic. Although this is a very good opportunity for Japan and the world to understand diversities, watching Paralympic Games. But we thought, performing arts, it's probably, better way to understand. People can actually, use their uniqueness to be a part of, a group, to be part of the show. So that's why we use performing arts to, deliver our message to, people who are not aware of these kind of differences, because performing arts are very easy to access to people who are not very interested in disability issues and other diversity issues. So that's why we chose this way to deliver our messages.
Which I think is very powerful because I know my daughter born with Down syndrome, she's very artistically inclined. She dances, her art is so interesting. There's so many things that she brings to her art and her music that often I'm like, just, oh, I never thought about thinking about an art this way. So I learned a lot just watching what she's done and with many others. But I agree, it's a way to really tap into our creativity and show that we're more alike than we're different. And I just applaud the work you're doing. I don't really know of many other foundations that are having greater impact to this community than the Nippon Foundation. I know I'm a big fan of understood.org in the United States and the Poses Foundation and the wonderful work they're doing, but there's not enough foundations, there's not enough people really making impact like it's being made by your foundation. So I just really, really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I wanted my audience to know about it. And I want them to know that we should all step in and help. We should tell your stories. We should, there's so many ways we all can help. And if you would, what could the audience do? How can we help the work that you're doing? How can we help you be even more successful? Because I think you're just a real game changer.
Oh, okay. Well, especially, about the True Cause Festival, the purpose is we want more people to understand the differences, to accept differences. Because we have Paralympic Games coming to Tokyo. So in Japan, more people are keen about, differences, especially persons with disabilities. And, many municipalities and local governments, they are trying to have better accessibility for everyone. But, those barrier-free issues and accessibility, it can never be perfect. I have a friend who's on wheelchair, and he has his own business, and he went to Rio Paralympic Games. And of course, compared to he's Japanese, and compared to the accessibility in Japan and also in Brazil, it's a huge difference because of the development of the countries. But one thing he found in Brazil much better than Japan was, people are so helpful, and people does not have barrier towards persons with disabilities compared to Japanese people. So I think it's very important for even developed country like Japan or Western countries. It's very important for more people have barrier-free mind, so that everyone can live easily, more comfortable. So I would like to have support. I'd like to have more people to understand the differences towards other people. So that's probably the support you can do. I mean, you have many audiences listening to your radio programs.
But that's a really good point, because Brazil has really done a lot to include people with disabilities. They have been very innovative, and of course they have struggles. They have a lot of struggles in the country, but they have. And it's interesting. I often will be brought into different consulting opportunities, it doesn't happen as much, this particular thing, but when I first started doing this, people would bring me because I was an American. And because they just assumed because I'm American, and we've had our Americans with Disabilities Act since 1990, that we've got it all figured out. No, we haven't. No, we have not gotten it all figured out, for sure. We've done a lot, but there's a lot to be done. I'd like to see more creativeness and more innovation, more partnering, as you're saying. And I always said, we need to learn from each other, because like you said, Brazil, people are so helpful and understanding, and they don't really say, oh, you're disabled, oh, you're this. And so I think there's so much that we all could do together as global citizens to make the world a better place, which is why partially why I do the show, and why I have amazing people like you on the show. But and I know that before we end, I do want to say that you actually have lived in the United States. You went to school. And I just wanted to, if you don't mind, just take a few minutes to talk about your history, because it's also very impressive.
Okay. Well, I used to be a journalist of Japanese public TV. And actually, well, I went to school in the United States, in North Carolina. And as a journalist, I spent 4 years in Washington, D.C. And my expertise was national security. So I covered the Pentagon for 4 years. So
wow.
This is totally different than what I'm doing right now compared to what I was expertised in as a correspondent. But my case is, probably, because I did not have any interest in, persons with disabilities. But because I changed my job and I have a new responsibility, and disability issues is one of my responsibilities. And because of that, I came to realize and understand people with disabilities more, and what we have to do towards the better world for them and for us. So I would like to have this True Colors Festival using performing arts to let those like my type of people who have not had chance to meet persons in differences to understand their perspectives, so that they can have more understanding each other. So using my case, it's very, very effective.
And I think that's a really good point, because I remember, when my daughter was born with Down syndrome, I remember thinking, I don't think I've ever met a person with a disability, which wound up being totally not true. There were multiple members in my family that had disabilities, but sometimes if you haven't been exposed to it, you just don't know. I think that's why the festival is so important, because the true colors, because we are all different, and there's such beauty in our diversity. But sometimes if you haven't exposed, you're not meaning that you're not trying to be leave people out. You just don't know. So I think that's why, once again, the work that you're doing is really important. And I'm thankful that you're looking at it not just from Japan, but you're looking at how can you make a difference for the rest of the world. So thank you for your leadership. Thanks for everything you're doing. So before we go, do you mind giving the audience the website for the Nippon Foundation? And we'll also include it in writing too.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We have an English website of the Nippon Foundation, and we also have a True Colors Festival English website. So if you just research True Colors Festival, it's easy to pop up, and
yes.
So is the Nippon Foundation. And before I go, one of the reasons I decided to have True Colors Festival in this coming summer is it's related to your country, because US will have a presidential election in November this year. So if you think about you know,
Yay!
this Tokyo 2020, this is a few months before of the U.S. presidential election, and not only in the U.S. and you have your, you know, primary audiences in UK. Divisions and isolationism are
Yes.
so popular.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to use this, you know, Olympic Games in Tokyo to deliver a message of, you know, ours. You know, more unity is
Yes.
needed, and it's probably, you know, more comfortable for everyone to have a little bit more unity and to understand each other compared to the trend in the United States and probably in UK. So
I agree. I agree.
yeah, so I
It's
would
very
like to,
troubling, very troubling
yeah,
as an
I would
American to
like
watch
to
what's happening.
deliver our messages from Tokyo when we have Olympic and Paralympic Games. The difference, you know, to probably people in the United States to think about
Yes.
who they choose as the president.
Yes. Why is it important? Why is it important to vote? Yeah, I think we all know why it's important to vote now. I always vote. My children have always, my daughter has always voted. My son's voted. My husband, we vote. And we consider it our civic duty to vote. And I am glad that you're shining a candle in the darkness and showing the way forward, because I obviously believe we are stronger together, and unity is so important. And so let's celebrate our differences because it makes us more
Yes.
interesting. So
Mhm.
that was a beautiful point, and I, as an American, really, really appreciate that. So thank you so much for being on the program today. I appreciate it. I know we have a big time difference, but I'm just very grateful for your work, and I'm here to help. You let me know anything we can do to support what you're doing, because we totally believe in what you're doing, and I applaud your efforts. So thank you so very much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you very much for having me in your show, and thank you very much for your support.
Yes, thank you. And bye to the audience, and we'll see you next time. So thank you, everyone.